we talk about all things automobile. Today, I'm joined by my co-host, Greg Acosta, editor of Engine Labs and all-around tech guru. What's going on, Greg?
Not much, man. How are you? I don't know if I don't know if I can even have you use that word with our guest today. Like,
yeah, that's true. That's true, man.
Not
that's
even close.
A weighty statement. Maybe we should let him assign that title.
Yeah, but, I can't. Don't be calling me that around him. Like,
but that's true. We do have a very special guest today. Viewers, listeners, you know him from his widely popular YouTube channel and his long list of accolades. None other than Mr. Richard Holdener. Let's bring him on, Greg. What's going on, Richard? How are you? I love it, man. I love it. Oh, man. You are a character. You're so well known in the industry. I'm so glad that you had a moment to stop and chat with us. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm known by tens of people.
Tens of people. I think it's a little bit more than that. All we got to do is go onto your YouTube channel, click on one of those links, and watch the view count just constantly rise, man.
That's all fake. That's just me making my own comments.
Oh, is that right? You just have a bunch of different fake profiles? Dude, where do you find the time? Oh, man. You know, Greg and I were kind of spitballing guests that we'd like to have on. And a name that constantly was coming up was Richard Holdener, because, you know, Greg runs Engine Labs. He's like tech savvy beyond my comprehension. And I just love watching your videos because you dumb it down for the layman, right? And so so for me, I watch your videos to learn, and Greg, he watches your videos to kind of bolster his understanding. And I think a lot of people do the same thing. Is that what you found?
I love it. They do good stuff over there. Greg's the guy.
Yeah. Well, you know, based on Greg actually just published an article today recapping one of his favorite videos, and I think he just published it, and it's on an 80s shootout, right? Between
yep. It's between a 305 TPI and a 5-liter.
That's right. That's right.
And obviously, I mean, I know, Richard, you constantly say you are not a Ford guy or a Chevy guy or whatever. Well, I'm not trying to hide that. I'm a Ford guy. Everybody knows it. But this one, I watched it, and it was too technically perfect. You know what I mean? It just points out the fact that an engine is an air pump. And it was just too perfect to pass up. I had to do something with it.
Where do you get your inspiration to do these videos, Richard? Why that?
Well, that stuff was a lot of fun. That like two-port stuff and then versus the 5-liter stuff. I mean, that's kind of what started it all. If you look back, especially for the Ford stuff before that, I mean, you know, there was really no Ford performance. So the 5-liter Mustang engine kind of like ushered in a whole new era of performance, you know, just when everybody thought, performance is dead, they got rid of carburetors, they made fuel injection real good, but you know it was going to make these even better and make them amazing. And that 80 stuff, you know, I tried to get Cindy Lauper and Billy Idol to come in and, you know, but I'm still waiting to hear back from your people.
Yeah, man, you should have hopped on the hood and done a little white snake dance for us.
Oh, yeah, that'd be good.
Hey, so what ended up being the... Yeah, Tawny Katane, man. So what ended up, spoiler alert for our viewers, what ended up being worth more, upping the compression or the boost?
Well, actually, I'm not sure about that. I'm getting ready I want to run that test, and actually that was more of a question on that video. That was more of a question for other people. The problem with running a test like that is that, you know, we're talking about what runs best at a given octane rating. So we're kind of specific in that particular test. Do we want to add boost or add compression? And, you know, to run that test is very difficult because you got to run the thing on the edge of detonation. You got to have good knock sensing technology. And that usually means that you got to run it with a factory ECU under factory conditions. It's a hard test to do. It's honestly something I haven't been able to do on the engine dyno.
Well, Richard, I do want you to give us a deep dive into your process, but I guess it starts with the idea. Where do your ideas come from? Do they just pop in your head? Do they come from your partners or your companies that you partner with, or your viewers, your buddies at Westech? How does it work?
Well, I think it kind of comes from all above all of those things, but it really starts with me because before people think that you're a writer and you get notoriety and stuff, but really I'm just a car guy. And that's how all of this started out. This whole thing started, and if I could go on a little tangent here real quick to answer your question, but it all started out as a tangent, as an accident for me. I went out to that Silver State race where we're running, flat out for 90 miles on an open road in my Mustang. And there was a guy out there that was doing a story for Kip at Turbo Magazine. And so he interviewed me and said, hey, what are you doing? What's this car? Because Kip had a 5-liter Mustang. And I ended up calling Turbo Magazine and asking him, I said, look, there's a guy out there doing the story. When is that going to come out? Because I'm just a car guy. I want to know when it's going to come out and maybe see myself in a magazine and be famous. And Kip ended up getting on the phone with me and said, hey, you were there. Can you read this story? And did this guy really capture what was going on at this particular event? And so I read it, and I felt bad because this guy didn't capture what that thing was all about. And so I was in a position where I had to tell, the editor and publisher of the magazine, hey, this guy really didn't get it, and it's coming from a nobody like me. And luckily, he listened to it and said, well, can you write a few things down and maybe get more flavor of what was going on at this event? So I just rewrote the story, and he said, okay, we're just going to get rid of this other guy's deal. We're going to run your story. And then I went off on this path toward the automotive, the not very lucrative automotive industry. Because a lot of people don't know, I have a degree in advertising, and I got offered jobs from my professors at school and stuff, and I was going to go down this, hey, let's get rich and be wealthy and be super successful. And instead, I became a car guy.
Well, you're rich in joy, I suppose, right? Like the rest of us.
Knowledge, I guess, sure.
Yeah. Well, to your credit, you're not just a car guy. You've been called a national treasure in the comments, but you really are, man, because for car guys everywhere, because you constantly have new content going up. Excluding recent events, I really want to get into the deep dive of what's your schedule like, man, because you seem like the busiest guy out there. Can you walk us through a typical day for Richard before all this craziness started happening?
Yeah. Before and even with this COVID thing going on right now, my day is still filled with because I recently started a YouTube channel. So the YouTube ushered in a whole new era of things for me because I have to shoot a video and edit a video, and for me, the kind of stuff that I'm doing is all of this Dyno stuff. So it takes a long time it doesn't take very long to shoot it, but it takes a long time to edit it and get in all the other information you have to get into the video. But a typical day at the Dyno is like, you wake up at 7 or whatever, and you come in, and depending on what the test is, it's usually always me having to build a motor or put together, reconfigure something, new heads, cams, whatever, and then you put in this kind of stuff that you see behind me. Hey, let's just quickly install 2 superchargers and an air air cooler, a low-through carburetor. We're going to run on 85, and we'll run different cams and intake manifolds. So it's a full day. I'm here until usually midnight, sometimes longer than that, to get this test done and then get prepped for the next test, because the next day is going to a whole nother thing.
Yeah, and you're there editing. I mean, just right before we got on the call, you were editing, right? So I know there's some rumors, right, that that you sleep at Westech, you live there. I mean, do you have an air mattress? You sleep in your truck? What's going on, man?
Yeah, early on in the days, we would come down and I would come here, and because if you're working until sometimes 2 or 3 in the morning, it just doesn't make any sense to go to try to stay in a hotel. Not that I can afford a hotel anyway. So then I would sleep in the shop. I had done a number of things. I had set up an air mattress and a sleeping bag. I had tried a cot, and I'll tell you, sleeping in the shop like this is no picnic. For one, it gets really cold here during the winter. And the other thing, I'm absolutely convinced that Westech is haunted, and I think it's haunted more to the other, and it happens to be whatever side I'm on, because when you walk out, it's pitch dark in here. There are all kinds of noises going on. I think rats are having parties. The ghosts are talking and telling stories about how much power they made. Whatever's going on, you know.
The ghost of.
The big roll-up doors are playing. The compressor goes on about every 6 or 8 minutes. So it's no paycheck trying to sleep here at the shop.
Yeah, I bet, man. You got the ghost of all those blown engines that you've blown up over the years.
Yeah, some of them on purpose.
Yeah, I'm going to get to that. Well, I guess it rolls right into my next question. And Greg and I were talking about this a little bit earlier. You spend so much time testing all these engines on the dyno. How do you deal with it when something doesn't go right on the dyno? Whether that's not meeting power expectations, equipment failures, parts not working cohesively, whatever.
Oh, we were just talking about that. We talked about that a lot because it's very rare that you can come in and put it. And I'm sure Greg knows this too. It's very rare that you come in and put an engine on the dyno and have everything go right. I mean, this particular test is a perfect example. We've got 2 superchargers blowing through a carburetor that we've run literally hundreds of times. And for whatever reason, right now, it doesn't want to work. And it's not like we don't have a very good, selection of smart people here that know what they're doing and have done this for a long time and should be able to find out answers. I mean, I've been testing for more than 25 years. Steve's been doing it, and Troy's fantastic. He's just great. So we got a lot of good guys here, and sometimes we can't figure it out. So I just did a video this morning when I was editing, and I put it out there. I'm asking for people because the best way to get answers sometimes is we don't always know everything. But if you can get a lot of eyes on the problem, somebody else is going to think of something else and maybe come up with the answer. So I'll ask questions, man. I don't have all the answers.
Well, as a professional, I'm curious. The reason that this question came about when Greg and I were talking was because, sometimes you'll read dyno ratings and they come with like a disclaimer. Well, we could have made this or we should have made this. As a professional, does that irk you, or do you understand because you do it so much? Not make excuses, but test.
Well, I mean, I think you're talking about guys saying, I had a top to it and there was a lot left, or there was a lot more power to be had there, that kind of thing. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, claims about what it could potentially make rather than what it did make,
Yeah, I think we see both ends of the spectrum there. I think you see guys saying, I put a soft tune in and there was a lot left. And you got 2 situations there. You got one where the guy doesn't actually know that there was a lot left, and that he wants to say that because it makes himself sound better, and that the thing could make a lot more power. On the other side of it, like something like this, we made 1,000 horsepower with that, but I've made 700 with just one of these superchargers, and we have 2 of them. So from the supercharger standpoint, we know that we could probably make 1,400. This motor, I've already made over 1,500, which is, maybe 1,540 with a stock bottom end 6-liter short block. So the potential is there, but just because the potential is there doesn't mean that it will actually cooperate. Because if we go back to the other thing, it doesn't always work out. Sometimes it does, and sometimes it doesn't. Which is why there's a lot more to be said for a guy that's actually climbed Mount Everest than a guy that says I can go climb Mount Everest.
Right. No, that totally makes sense. And reading the stats, and that's why I wanted to ask that question, because I read your post about, I believe that's the twin torque storm blowers that you have on that 6-liter behind you, and it's what, 15 pounds and spun only to 6,000 RPM, where you got 10-15, right? Peak horsepower.
Yeah.
And so you do have a lot more to go. I mean, you can spin that thing to 7, and I believe that's what you guys are getting ready to test today, right?
Yeah, the motor will easily go to 7. It'll probably go more than that. This thing's climbing at a rate of, if you look at the power curve, it's climbing at a rate of 20 horsepower for every 100 RPM. So, in 500 RPM, we gain 100 horsepower. So there's a lot of potential left, and we know the blowers can do it. I think we're probably going to have to wait until we get our other hauling ECU. I managed, again, you were talking about the things that go wrong. I managed to somehow damage the ECU, and now it's not working. So I have to replace it and figure out how I broke this one, because I'm sure that it's my fault. And as soon as we get that taken care of, I'll be able to run this. We'll be able to run the blowers up to make power.
Well, I mean, that's cheap R&D testing for them, you know. I mean, let's give stuff to Richard and see how he breaks it. But
Right, he'll do it. He's done.
well, speaking of, you know, projects going according to plan and breaking things, can you tell us more about your Big Bang projects? Like, those have to be the most fun, right? Do you know at the beginning that you're going to blow it up, or do you blow?
It was super cool because it all started out way back. I did my first one back in 2010, and I did that one for Hot Rod Magazine. And I put on what I thought was a 5.3. It turned out to be a 4.8 because I never even checked. But the whole premise was, and we've gone through this with 5-liter Fords and Hondas and really every motor because there's a lot of misinformation. People are saying, oh, the stock rods break at 10 pounds, or you break pistons at 10 pounds. And so I wanted to show people that the piston and the rod actually don't know what boost is. They don't understand that. They have no concept of that. And if everything is right, these things will take a lot more power than people think. If the tune is right, the air is right, and the other big thing on the Big Bang stuff, and the critical element a lot of people on any force induction application is you have to put a lot of ring gap in. The factory has tight ring gaps because they're worried about emissions and stuff, and they don't want things to have blow by, they want to seal up. If you add ring gap to it, and then you tune it right, on a stock bottom end, back then in 2010, we made over 1,200 horsepower with that 4.8 by adding turbos to it, turning it up. We never even heard that motor on that test. Subsequently, I've done it with a 5.3 and a 6.0, and all three of those were the early Gen 3 motors, which were supposed to be the weak one. Then we did it with a Gen 4, and that stock bottom end with ring gap, you know, that thing had 250,000 miles on it. And we reused the factory rings. We just added a ring gap to it. The used factory rings. And that thing made 1540, and we ran out of map sensor. I basically topped out my 3-bar map sensor. Couldn't do it anymore. That motor's still alive, and it's sitting right here, and we just made 60 or 70 runs that were near 1,000 horsepower. So it obviously can do it.
Yeah. Holy hell, man. That's like, I guess, the next best thing to actually like putting these engines into a race car and testing them at full bore. I mean,
yeah, you know, obviously what we do on a dyno, it's kind of an artificial environment and everything is optimized and everything works well. When you put it in a car, it's kind of a different thing, but as long as the tune's right, I think you could go out and run this. I don't know that I would run it at 1,500 horsepower. Obviously, we're trying to find a braking limit. But there's lots of guys out there running on stock bottom ends at 1,000 horsepower and making lots and lots of passes at it. And if you blow it up, you just go to the wrecking yard and get another $300 motor.
Richard, your experience spans several decades. What have been your favorite projects? I mean, right now we're talking about having fun, breaking stuff, but over that entire time, what sticks out in your mind as your favorite projects, and what's giving you the most positive responses from your fans?
Well, there's a couple of quick things. One is I got to do a lot of road racing with Hal Baer and those guys who ran an SEC World Challenge. So I got a ton of stories about that. I did a land speed project after somebody made me mad, and I went out to beat them and ended up doing that. So we went 227 miles an hour in my Civic, which at the time, and it may still be, was the world's fastest Honda Civic. So I got to build that motor and do that stuff. That was super cool. The road racing stuff was cool. I got to do even more of that with the Del Sol and won a U.S. Touring Car Championship. Because while everybody else was doing, when I was riding for Muscle Mustangs, everybody else in the world was drag racing. I was going road racing. So I was always the odd man out. The Big Bang stuff was super cool. I like some of the tests that I've done. We ran 20 different cylinder heads. I did that for Big Block Chevy. I did that for 5-liter Ford. I did that for LS. You know, I ran 20 different LS intake manifolds. For some reason, somebody will come into Westech and say, hey, I want to test one intake. And I'm like, yeah, those are rookie numbers. Test 20. And then I open my big mouth and then I make all that logistics happen. It's a lot of work.
Well, I know that so many people, myself included, have used that test that you did on all those intake manifolds as a benchmark before they make a big purchase. And to the person's point who left that comment, for that reason, you are a national treasure, man, because you did the homework that a lot of people can't afford to do or don't have the means to do. So that's cool. And you touched on a lot of things that I want you to expound upon. But right now, I'm concerned with your process. You have a educational background that isn't directly tied to what you're doing right now, sort of. How did you become so technical? How did you develop your process for actually testing all these things?
Well, I think that happened out of necessity. Because when I first started coming here, I brought a 5-liter Mustang engine because that's what I had. And so you're forced to learn stuff. And luckily for me, the guys here at Westech had a really good knowledge background. And we all learned a lot of stuff we learned together. Some guys are really good at carburation, some guys are really good at fuel injection, some guys understand small block or big block Chevys or Hondas or whatever. And because I wanted to test everything, it kind of forced my hand. I mean, for a long time, I was these guys had LS motors that had been sitting for 3 or 4 or 5 years. And I finally just said, we haven't run one, but we need to. So let's do what we have to do to make that happen. Same thing with the modular Ford. Nobody wanted to run modular Ford engines, and I ran a ton of them. I wrote a book on modular Ford performance. And really, there's nothing magic about an engine. The pistons go up and down, the camshaft spins around, as long as you have that in time. And when you go from a stock cam to some aftermarket cam, it picks up power. When you port the heads, it picks up power. And it does that regardless of what engine you have. It doesn't matter whether it's a big block or a small block or a modular Ford or a Honda or Suzuki. Because I did projects with, after we did the Bonneville project with Honda, we had other manufacturers approach us and say, hey, we want you to do a Bonneville project. So I did one with the guys from Suzuki, and we got a Kazashi to go 200 miles an hour with Tom, who used to work here at Westech. We also did a couple of Volkswagen projects. So again, it doesn't matter. I mean, an internal combustion engine, they're the same. You just have to learn the little tricks for each one. I
got you. So would you, do you consider yourself to be like an extremely meticulous person with a great attention to detail that your personality lends itself to this? I mean, I'm just curious if let's say for that intake manifold test, you tested 20 different intake manifolds. How long did it take you? And can you just walk us through how you tested each one, and then documented it?
Yeah, the test itself actually, and especially in the case of the intake manifolds for an LS, it's very easy to swap manifolds and test them. So the test procedure actually doesn't take that long. What takes long, just like everything else in our life, is the preparation. So actually bolting the intakes on and making the runs and doing the tuning, that doesn't take very long. What took a long time was the 4 or 5 or 8 different throttle bodies that I had to size for them. And then the different fuel rails, again, we had probably 8 or 10 different combinations of fuel rails and ejector size and length that we had to put in. So and again, with the cylinder head test, the same thing. I had to change all the springs and airflow test them. So all the prep before the test made the test go a lot faster. But it took weeks and sometimes months of preparation to make everything work, all the logistics and everything. For instance, the cylinder heads, they all take different push rod lengths, so we got to make sure all the push rod lengths are right. And then the intake manifold, that was not a problem. Once I prepped everything, and all I had to do was go, okay, this combination is ready now to bolt on. Bolting that on now takes a few minutes, but only because there were 2 weeks of work that happened before that 10 minutes.
Right. So you have your own type of scientific method. Would you call it the Holdener method?
Yeah, and your question about is, am I obsessive, compulsive, and that kind of personality? No, I'm not. When it comes to testing, I'm very meticulous about generating the data and making sure that it's accurate. But I would much rather go down to the wrecking yard and get a greasy motor and throw that up here than I would build an engine that's hermetically sealed inside of build room. I'm less that guy than I am more the average guy.
Gotcha. So a car guy through and through. I want to take a quick step back here and shift gears. You touched on a couple things. I'm going to lead with the more enticing one. You mentioned getting angry with someone and setting out to set a record. You got to give us the story, man. You can't drop something juicy on us like that and not expound on it.
Well, it was actually with the guys from Progress, the suspension guys. I don't know if you're familiar with them. And it was only one guy in particular. And this all started out right. They had a Civic that they were trying to run top speed stuff with, and they didn't really have a handle on what needed to happen to make that happen. So I helped them do their naturally aspirated deal. I helped them set a record. And then I said, we really need to I have been testing a lot of Vortex stuff, and I had done a ton of stuff with the Vortex on my Del Sol. And I said, we can make enough power to get this thing to go 200. I said, it won't be a problem. And so we said, okay, let's go do that. But there was a personality clash there. And it finally manifested itself into me not wanting to work with them. But they took this program and the sponsors and went out and went 200 with the car after basically showing them what they needed to do. And so that kind of pissed me off. So I decided that I would go out and crush them. So 99 Civic SI, and I think actually, if I remember right, and I could be wrong about this, but I think that during testing we actually went 200. I think we were the first ones to go over 200. They did it officially at Automotive, which is awesome, and I salute the guys who are doing that. But I built built the engine and tested the motor in this car. It made 728 horsepower on the dyno here at like 29 pounds, and we only ever ran it at Bonneville at about 15 or 16. And the car went 227 and set a record that stood for, until the last couple of years, I think that the guys from Honda and Doug, who I know is a great guy, he had been trying to break that record every year for a long time, and every time they tried, something bad happened. Something like terrible, like car crashes, and catching on fire.
Oh no!
And they finally did it, which is awesome. And again, I saluted, and I got a good story about Bonneville. We were actually in impound with this Civic. There was another guy that we liked who was racing a Civic. Racing a Honda, and he said, "Yeah, we got to leave because we broke the axle, the half shaft on the car, and so we don't have a spare." We're like, "Dude, just take ours." They're like, "Yeah, but we're trying to break your record." Like, yeah, we want you to do that because then we can go out and break it again. We said, "Look, it's not about us winning in spite of you. It's about all of us winning." So we were in impound having set a record. We took our half shaft out and gave it to him so he could go out and try to set the record. Because that's what people should do. I mean, that's what guys should do. And that's what the guys originally from Progress didn't understand. They didn't understand it's about people. And so we helped them out. And we did the same thing. We were in tech one time, and there was a guy there that had a really cool, I think it was an S14, and he had an RB20 motor in it, and they were trying to set a record. They were trying to break one of our records, and they said, "Yeah, we had we went out and spun the car and blew the left-hand window or the rear glass out." And we're like, "Well, what are you trying to do? Tell us about what's going on here." They said, "Yeah, well, we got this RB motor, makes 800 horsepower, and it's running 25 pounds of booster." We're like, "Okay, hang on. Here's what you need to do. What's the lightest spring you have for that thing?" They said, "Well, it's like 10 or 12 pounds." "Okay, put that in and go out and just make a pass. And then come back and tell me what happened." "Oh, no, we need 25 pounds. We're like, look, you need 400 horsepower to go break this record. We know because we know what it takes. We've already done it." Go out and set a record, run at 10 pounds, make a pass, and make sure the car's okay, and tell us what happened. He goes, "Okay." We went out and we saw them after they made the run. "Okay, it went 196. We're like, "Dude, you're about 3 or 4 miles an hour right from setting a record." He said, "Turn the boost up 2 pounds and go make another pass." No, we need to run. I said, "Look, don't do that. Run time we see them, they are an impound because they just run over there. And they're like, dude, you guys are awesome. Thanks for helping us out. And we said, okay, look, when you go back out to reset it, because you have to back the record up, turn it up 1 pound and get your record. Then go out and try 3 or 4 pounds and see what happens. But go up in small steps. So that, because a lot of these guys will go out, they do the same thing to drag racing or go to Silver State. They set the thing on kill, and they never get any information. They never make any passes. So this guy was, and now he's our best friend. And I'd much rather have a guy be my friend than me take a record from him. It's much more important. And this guy's cool. He's got a great car. We love him, and we'll help everybody that we can.
A lesson in sportsmanship, ladies and gentlemen, from Richard Holdener. Seriously.
Well, and when we were working on this, I gave Kevin a call from CSU, who uses hardware, and said, Kevin, is there any way you could come over and help us? And he dropped what he was doing and he came over and helped us. I would much rather have a guy be able to call a guy and have him do that. It's about the people. It's not about the parts.
Right. Richard, I want to take another step back for a moment because, for our viewers who might only know you from your recent videos and your online presence now, can you take us way back when you first started all this and kind of tell us how you got your start in this industry? I know you say you went to school, and then after that you kind of found your way into motorsports, and now here you are dropping all this knowledge on everyone about sportsmanship, engine building, etc. How'd that happen?
Well, I mean, I'll take the beginning. My first car was a split bumper 70.5 Rally Sport Camaro.
Hell yeah!
So I had that car for a long time. And again, while everybody was drag racing, I put conies on it. We cut big block springs. I went to the junkyard, got WS6 Trans Am bars for it, and so I made mine into kind of a road race car. I sold that, bought a 260Z, which I did a hybrid motor for with side draft Webers and did all that stuff. And then eventually I decided I wanted to go road racing. So I bought a 5-liter Mustang to go SCCA showroom stock racing. And I did that, and we did fairly well. Unfortunately, my version of showroom stock racing meant that it was stock, and everybody else's version of showroom stock racing meant that it would barely pass spec. There's a lot less stock than mine was. But and the other thing that happened was when I started racing, I bought an '88 5-liter LX, and I bought it in November of '87. Still have the car, still original or OG, Knox 5-liter Mustang. But when I bought that car, not long after that, Chevy decided to introduce the 1LE Camaro package. And as everyone knows, that car will handle and stop and do all the things much better than my Mustang, especially brakes. When I would go out there and run my Mustang, and we would run showroom stock races for the weekend, and I would sometimes come back with no front pads, no front rotors. The calipers were seized up. So I remember driving home I put vice grips on the brake lines on the front calipers and drove home only the rear drum brakes. And so, that I don't recommend that.
Good Lord. A risk taker too. Holy cow. So you started out road racing.
When I did that, I found out about the Silver State race. And they said, hey, you can come out and run this race flat out for 90 miles on a deserted stretch of highway. And I'm like, dude, that totally sounds like me. So I went out there, and this is before, this is long ago. But the coolest thing was being roaring, like they have a straightaway in there that's 10 or 12 miles long. So whatever your car will do, it's going to do that there. But it's cool to look out the window while you're going down the road. And back then, this was a very mild, 302 with headers and stuff on it. But it would go about 150 miles an hour. But to look over and see a highway patrol spotter plane and you going faster than the spotter, you think a highway patrol plane in the dust. It was just a slice of awesomeness.
Well, yeah, man, you had to feel like Kowalski in Vanishing Point.
Oh, yeah, it was, or Gumball Rally, or anything. It was just fantastic.
Exactly.
They put a blower on, we put a Vortec on it, and I ended up winning the race outright at 167 mile an hour average. And now guys are just going, they're going nuts again. Because for the longest time, I went out there 12 years in a row. I was the only guy at the time that had finished all 12 of those races, because you know, a lot of people would come and go, and a lot of guys would broke and stuff. So we kind of had a record there for a while. Me and my buddy Jimmy and Bernie, who had a 240Z, and so we would go out there every year. But it was really cool. And again, it's the great people that you meet when you go out there. But that car ran good. But I got a little greedy because I took the D trim off of it. And incidentally, here's a little side note. That Vortec that I had on that Mustang was serial number 001.
Oh, wow.
That's how OG that was. And then they got upgraded to a B trim. But I decided to get greedy and I put an R trim on it. And that car went almost 200 before I kind of blew it up in spectacular fashion.
Well, hey, Richard, you were mentioning that you burned the pads off of your Mustang, off the LX. Is that how you ended up working with Hal Baer and those guys?
Well, yeah, I was racing showroom stock, and I did that for, I think I only had like 5 or 6 races under my belt. And so I decided that I knew everything that there was to know about road racing. I was the best driver in the world. And put together a program called World Challenge Racing, because that's what you do after you run 6 races, is you immediately go pro. so I decided to go World Challenge Racing and put a program together. I had a sponsor and got together with Hal Baer. And at the time, Boris Said was driving for him. And I remember going out on a track and they let Boris get in the car that I was driving. And he was only about 3 seconds a lot faster than I was. That's when I realized, hey, maybe you don't know everything that there is to know about road racing. Because Boris, I don't know if you know Boris Said, but he's a hilarious guy and he's super on the gas. I mean, that guy knows how to get the most out of a car. And, you know, it was an eye-opening experience, but I learned and got faster and stuff and ended up doing really well and have lots and lots of road racing stories. And none of it is about, and this is the thing, if you talk to guys that race, it's almost never the stories that they tell about, oh, do you remember when I won a championship, or do you remember when I won this race? It's all about, do you remember when the trailer caught on fire and we flipped the car over and these people came to save us, and it's all of this like crazy, insane stuff that you can't even believe is true, but it is, and we've had this.
Richard, one thing that I gather after speaking with you at length and just watching your videos and you know, reading a little bit about you, you seem like a super competitive guy, which is a great thing, especially in the environment that we work. Do you think that carries over into all aspects of your life?
Well, I think that, like I said with the Bonneville stuff, I'd much rather have a friend, but that doesn't stop me. If the guy's in the next lane and we're going to race that stoplight, it's on. I mean, I want to beat that guy. After that race is over, I'll help that guy make his car faster. Because that's what I think that the hot rod industry needs to be. It's not about, like, it always drives me nuts when people post comments on videos or stories I've done, and they say, oh, you know, LS motors are the best and Honda suck. That's not true. Everybody wants to go faster, and that's what I want to do. I want Hondas to make more power, I want LS to make more power, I want everybody to get faster and go faster. But again, if I'm road racing with somebody, I'm going to try to beat you. I'm going to do everything that there is short of, you know, driving dirty to win. I want to win. If I'm drag racing somebody, I want to win. After that's over, I want to sit down and have a drink with you and talk about racing. 100%,
man. The mark of a true sportsman. That's awesome. You know, Richard, I know that there are many, and maybe some you can't tell on the air, but if we were writing a Richard Holdener book, right, what's the first story that comes to mind after having such a lengthy and prosperous career? What's chapter 1? What would you lead with?
Well, I think you're kind of asking what I would like to be remembered about, you know, remembered by. One thing I would want people to say about me, and I think if you talk to the guys here at Westech, I think what they will say is that guy works hard. And I think that if you go through life and you work hard, I think good things will happen for you. I mean, there's something to be said for working hard in the right direction. Because if we keep hammering on something and it doesn't get any better, maybe we should stop hammering on it. But I want people to say that guy worked hard. And I think that they do.
Yeah, I don't think anybody will dispute that, especially with what's sitting right behind you. I'm sure that we can expect a lot more content. What's coming down the pipe for Richard right now? What can viewers expect to be your next video? What's going on?
Well, I got some cool stuff coming up, and what I came down here to test this week was I'm doing the Sloppy Stage 2 cam versus the world, so we're testing that cam that Matt, the guy that Sloppy always used. We're testing that against, I don't know, 5 or 6 other basically stage 2 turbo cams. And so I'm going to run those NA and turbo and see what they all do. So we can talk about that. And so I can talk about, one of the things I've been telling people for years is that every cam is a turbo cam. And that means that basically if you have a cam and a motor and you add boost to it, it's going to work. And that's true for 95% of every cam I've ever put in a motor. So, and that's the other thing I'd like to point out is that all of this stuff that I do, we could get more technically involved. I could talk about things at a very minutia level, but that's not what I do. What I want is the stuff that I do to appeal to 90 or 95% of the people. So, like I said, 90 or 95% of the people. If you stick a cam in and you put boost on, good things are going to happen. That's the 90% rule, or the 95% rule. That's how it works. Now we can go in and go, well, but if we change the valve events by this much, or we add more duration, or LSA, we can talk about that. But you don't have to start out with that stuff. Start out with the big stuff. And, I think that's the way to go.
Richard, I know this is going to sound like an odd question because
is it about Warrior?
Is it about what now?
You probably don't even know that I did American Ninja Warrior for a couple of years, right?
Actually, holy crap, Richard. Actually, now it is related to what we're talking about. That's so funny. I was just going to say, I don't want to guess your age, but I would be willing to bet that you have more energy than guys half your age. And how do you, what's your fitness regimen, man? How do you keep your energy level so high?
Right?
How do you maintain such a high level of energy?
Well, I have my wife is 14 years younger than I am, and I waited fairly long into life to get married and have kids. So I want to make sure that I'm, healthy and can play with them, because my oldest boy plays football and wrestling and did wrestling and stuff. And my youngest boy is a soccer player, so God forbid I have to get out and play soccer with the kids. But I want to make sure that, and I've always done stuff. I was the first one in our family to do flips on snow skis, and we go water skiing, and so we run and work out. Like I said, the thing that I'm kind of proud of is the American Ninja Warrior stuff. I've watched that show since the beginning stuff back at Sasuke when they did it in Japan, and watched all the way through. And I was sitting on the couch one day with my kids, and they're like, "Oh, this is really cool. Daddy, why don't you do this?" And I'm like, that's a good lesson. Why don't I try it? And so I started working out. I built my own salmon ladder and built a contraption in the back where I had 10 foot machine bars, all kinds of crazy stuff. And went to Denver and as a walk-on and waited in line for 4 or 5 days. And unfortunately for me, it snowed and rained. And, we're sleeping in our cars and sleeping outside and, waiting for just a chance to even be called to get on the show. And in that case, I actually got called to go in, so I was waiting in line to run. And then a lot of people don't know that they film at night, so the lighting is better and stuff. And they called the show, when the sun starts coming up, they just stop production. They said, okay, that's it. And I didn't get to run, but that wasn't as bad as the guy who was actually on the stage waiting to make his run, and the producers went up and said, okay, we're done. So he was that close to make it run. But again, just like with the car stuff, the American Ninja Warrior stuff is awesome, and the people that I got to meet, the thing that these young kids, these 21 and 22-year-old kids could do, is just, it's mind-boggling what they can do. It's amazing. But then I went the next year and waited in line in Venice Beach here in California, and so having girls walking around with bikinis was much better because it was warmer there. But I had to wait in line for 8 days
Whoa.
Sleeping in a tent. And if you know anything about Venice Beach, it gets a little shifty there at night. But I actually got on TV and I got interviewed, got to run. And unfortunately for me, I made a silly mistake and fell on one of the obstacles, like the third or fourth one. But it's hard after staying up all night, not sleeping, waiting in line, and then your nerves get the best of you because the cameras are rolling and all this stuff. But it was an awesome time, and I loved it.
Richard, if our viewers and myself included weren't impressed before, they are now, dude. Greg and I were talking about this before, and I was like telling him, like, man, I hope I have the energy level that he has when I get older. And I don't know how he does it, but the dude's shredded. He's like ripped. I mean, I know you got a sweater on right now, but I've seen you in person many times, and you're in great shape. So it's not a surprise that you did American Ninja Warrior. Yeah, I'm sure, man. I'm sure. But that's wild. So American Ninja Warrior, you got that feather in your cap. You're currently working on more. You said you have a video coming out on your YouTube channel. What's the name of your YouTube channel, Richard?
Richard Holdener is my name. I need to come up with something clever. So if anybody's watching and come up with some clever idea, let me know. But I just wanted to incorporate what I do. The other thing I do is, and I don't have a lot of it on the channel right now because I was primarily focusing on the automotive stuff. But from the time that I was 5, when I caught my first snake, I'm a snake guy also. So we go out and my family had a ranch for a long time, and there are a lot of areas where I go out, and we may catch more than 100 in a season. And I don't know if you know anything about Northern California, but there's a lot of rattlesnakes here. So we catch a lot of rattlesnakes, and do videos with those. And it's all just catch and release. I'll go catch them for the farmers and the ranchers, and we'll move them, relocate them up in the hills so that they're away from their pets and livestock and that kind of stuff. I don't want to kill the snakes because I love them.
Of course.
I also want them to bother the people and their pets and all that. So we try to relocate and do that stuff. But that's another thing. There's a lot of stuff that people don't know.
No, that's so funny, man. You and I have a lot more in common than I initially thought. I'm also from Northern California, and I'm a huge snake guy. I love snakes. Every time I see a rattlesnake, I always have to stop myself from trying to go and pet the little guy because I love him. That's awesome, dude. So I know that you travel and you work at Westech quite a bit, and you spend a lot of time there. But are you local to SoCal, or are you still up north?
No, I live up in Vacaville between Sacramento and San Francisco, and I commute down here, which is a 900-mile round trip. So that's why I come down here and I'll stay for a week or whatever and get done. And that's why when I come down, I want to work long hours because I want to try to get done as much as I can while I'm here. And I'm not here goofing off. I'm working, and then I go back home and I can see my family who I want to spend all my time with, and go back and put all the videos together, or back in the day when we were doing magazine stories and stuff, put all that stuff together and get all that stuff turned in. Holy
cow. Viewers, if you weren't grateful before, drop a thank you in some of those videos, because I know you guys are learning a lot from what Richard's doing, and I think as a whole, us enthusiasts owe you a lot. So a 900-mile round trip to give us good content. Thank you, Richard.
That's why because in addition to obviously making more power, I also like efficiency. So I have a lot of vehicles that we've done stuff to dramatically improve the mileage. For instance, I have a Chevy Sprint Turbo, the 3-cylinder turbo motor that we set some land speed records with. But the other thing that I did with that is we made modifications to it so that it would get over 50 miles per gallon. And back then I was commuting from Vegas out here when we lived in Vegas. And the next car that I got after that one unfortunately got stolen was a Civic VX. So if you're familiar with Civics, the VX is the lean burn one. So it would run down the freeway at like 18 or 19.1, and that car would get 55 or 56 miles per gallon cruising on the freeway, so that I wouldn't have to spend as much money while I'm making a big round trip down to Westech.
Yeah, I bet, man. I bet. Well, we're eternally grateful for you. Everybody definitely check out Richard Holdener's YouTube channel. Just look him up, Richard Holdener. Hey, so before we let you go, Richard, I am curious. Are you still doing any racing? Do you have any plans on getting back into it at all?
I would actually like to go out to Bonneville. One of the things I've been thinking around, and I've been wanting to do this for a long time, after doing the B-Series Honda, I actually want to put together a 1-liter B-Series Honda. So I've already done the calculations on what size stroke. It's a really tiny stroke. And I think that I can build both an NA 1-liter B-Series Honda, so it would be a V10, and a turbo version, and go out and really just crush some like land speed records in my old Civic, who I sold to my land speed record Civic. I sold to a good friend, John Hansen, and helped them go out, and they actually set 3 other records and got John and both his 2 sons in the 200-mile-an-hour club in that car. So it's just been a fantastic car.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. Constantly giving back to the community. I love it. What a great send-off. Richard, thank you so much for coming on, dropping some knowledge for us, giving us some stories, and adding to the Richard Holdener mystique. Thank you so much, brother.
Hey, yeah, next time we'll have a few drinks and we'll tell some really good stories. Vinny, you guys are doing awesome stuff over there. Let me know if I can help out and do anything. I love the stuff you guys are doing. Thanks for having me on, man.
Thank you. We're going to drop a link to your YouTube channel in the comment section below. If you guys have any questions for Richard, drop those questions in the comments, and we'll see if we can get them answered. For now, check out the latest article on Engine Labs, where you can watch Richard's video and a recap. Richard, thank you so much, man. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, man. Get about 8 to 10 million guys to go over the YouTube channel.
Peace out, brother.
All right, man. See you.
Greg,
Man,
how are you, brother?
Talk about an interesting. I mean, dude, you guys had me laughing so hard at one point. There is coffee all over my wall. Like, no joke. I was cleaning it up during the interview.
No, that was fantastic, man. It was great to get some insight into the mind behind Richard, somebody who's constantly giving back to the industry and us enthusiasts, shedding light on technical information that we would otherwise not have.
Yeah, and I mean his whole mindset.
Greg,
am I losing you?
There we go.
His whole mindset
you're good.
is it's really impressive. The way he comes at engines is something I wish a lot more people did. Where engines aren't Honda or Chevy or Ford, they are their displacement, they are their RPM band, they are their efficiencies. I really,
well, they all have their merits and they all have their detriments.
Yeah, unfortunately, like we see a lot of it on Facebook. I actually posted something, Honda B series versus K series, and of course the first comment is, "We'll melt them both down and make something useful like Ford heads." You know, I mean, it's like, come on, these are 2 of the most efficient engines. You know, and they were, you know, the B series was what, in the 80s, and the K series came out in the 2000s. So I mean, they're insanely efficient. They're just cool. Like, it doesn't matter that they're Honda. They're cool engines.
Credit, I think it's cool because you know, he approaches it with a mindset that's not myopic, right? So many people are like, "Oh, I'm only a Chevy guy," or "Oh, I'm only a Ford guy," or a Honda or a Nissan or whatever. But he's just all about pushing the envelope, no matter what it is. And I guess that stems from his original sportsmanship, like he was mentioning. You know, so if you carry that over into engine building, it's really just about getting the most out of whatever you're working on, and that's cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Tech is about tech. Like, that's no scientist is ever going to go in, and I'm not calling us scientists, even though we try to use a scientific method. No scientist is going to go into something with a closed mind, at least not a good one.
Yeah.
Because this stuff is just so interesting.
Well, unexpected, you know?
Yeah, and he talks about his 1-liter, you know, B series thing. That is insane. And that, I mean, makes me think of another land speed engine we covered in Engine Labs that Jeff Smith wrote about, which was a small block Chevy with 4 of the holes, you know, pulled.
Right, yeah. Yeah,
and,
that's a cool one.
That really is. And now Richard's doing something similar. I'm like, I'm going to follow that now that I know it exists.
Well, yeah, that's the whole thing, man. Constantly doing new and innovative stuff. I mean, he's done so much testing on the LS platform that people know him for, but the guy spends countless hours on the engine dyno producing content. And so eventually, you know, he has to get to Honda engines and everything else. So just constantly innovating and pushing the envelope, I think is really cool. And we all owe Richard a debt of gratitude if you're into engine building.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, I don't think a lot of people have spent a lot of time in an engine dyno. I mean, I remember I spent a full week at Westech one time, and by the end of it, I was so done. Like I could have slept for 3 weeks, and we weren't pulling hours like him at all.
Yeah.
But just the stress. I mean, that is not an easy life that he leads.
I had no idea he commutes 900 miles round trip. That's insane. But
when he said Vacaville, I've made that drive like twice in my life, and that's enough for me.
Dude, it's wild. And then for him to talk about doing American Ninja Warrior, I had no idea. Did you know about that?
No, I didn't know about the American Ninja Warrior at all.
Dude, that's sick. We were just talking about that. We're like, dude, how does he stay so fit? I mean, guy's shredded. Yeah. Well, I guess now we know. Doing salmon ladder and stuff.
Dude, that American Ninja Warrior stuff is no joke. And then he actually said, you know, what these younger people can do. I have a friend whose sister does it, and she actually had a really bad fall.
Yeah.
And when you fall like that, your first thing is, oh, well, she's paralyzed. She was back up in 5 weeks. Like how you have your body so, I mean, just so fit that it can withstand that kind of abuse.
Well, that's the thing, man. It's all about, you know, diet and exercise. And to Richard's credit, I mean, the guy must have a stellar diet and a workout regimen. I know a couple years ago, I was in a pretty bad motorcycle accident. This little lady hit me, and I broke my back in a couple places. And the doctor was like, "Yeah, man, you know, if you weren't so fit," and I was much more muscular then. He was like, "If you weren't so fit, you probably might be paralyzed." And I was like, "What are you talking about?" He said, "You know, you have all these muscles that stabilize these bones." And anyways, yeah, man, every time I watch those American Ninja Warrior competitions, I think, dude, I feel like an ankle sprain coming on just watching this. And, you know, it makes me feel older than I am.
Well, I always feel guilty because I sit there and watch it while I'm eating like potato chips. And I'm like, oh.
You're talking crap about the people like, idiot, missed that bar.
Well, I mean, seriously, I'm in perfect shape. Round is a shape, and I'm perfectly round. That's perfect. Like,
yeah, man.
But I mean, I just am in awe of that kind of stuff.
Built for comfort, I think.
Yeah. Built for comfort, not speed.
Yeah.
I'm more of a Cadillac Eldorado.
No, man, I would not. With that Ford hat on, no, you can't claim a GM like that. You're like a Lincoln.
Okay. Yeah. A Lincoln. Yeah. On bags. Yeah. Yeah.
Suicide doors, man. I like them.
Yeah. For sure.
No, but I'm so glad that Richard made time to come talk to us. He's a super busy guy. And like I mentioned to all of our viewers, if you guys have questions for Richard or us, please drop them in the comment section below. We'll try to get those answered for you. And of course, we're going to drop some links down in the comments, a link to the article that Greg just published, recapping Richard's latest video. We'll also drop a link to his YouTube channel in the comment section below. And I think that does it for today. You guys can catch us next week, every week, Friday, noon Pacific time. And we have some really special guests coming up on the docket. Greg, do you have anything for our viewers and listeners before we sign off?
I mean, we've got some fun stuff coming up. Actually, we have an article that Jeff Smith just did at Westech. It's funny because Westech gets so much love because they're so great to work with. But yeah, I mean, so we got more stuff coming and
yeah, man. What's the next big article that's going to be coming out on Engine Labs? What should people look out for?
Well, the big thing is we're talking about CompCam's LST cam lobe designs. They are the low shock technology LST. So we're explaining, you know, the theory behind them with Billy Godbold, and then Jeff actually runs a really cool test of the LST cam with the same specs as one of the older, don't quote me, but I want to say the LRR lobe, but an older lobe shape, but with the same specs. And there is a very noticeable difference with what should be the
surprise for our readers.
Yeah, and that test, that's probably going to publish. No, I mean, that's not going to drop anytime soon. I mean, maybe 3 weeks out on that.
Okay.
But yeah, for sure. So that's some cool tech coming up, because that low shock technology stuff, that is like super duper brainy, you know. And Billy Godbold, he's a nuclear physicist, right? Like the dude is like a brain on legs. But yeah.
You heard it, guys. For all your tech stuff, check out enginelabs.com. For features and just cool muscle car stuff, late model or otherwise, check out streetmusclemag.com. Of course, check out powerautomedia.com and all of the titles that we have over there. Again, 12 noon Pacific time, this time, Friday. We'll be back with another special guest. Drop us a couple names in the comments section too, if you guys have suggestions, people that you want to see, people that you think would be a good interview. And we'll see you next week. Thank you. I'm Vinny Costa. That's Greg Acosta. We'll see you next time. Peace.